Hello and welcome to Brian Lomax Movie Talk. I'm joined by two special guests today. The usual CP, everyone knows him. He's always on here. Say hello, CP.
I think this is my first time here in 2017.
Surely
Yeah,
not. No,
I think so.
We did a commentary in which you couldn't speak. It may be the first one you were on in which you could actually talk. But...
Oh, right. Yeah, this is the first one where I'm speaking at audible volume.
All right. So yeah, CP from Will I Like It Reviews and Zack from Zack versus the Blu-Ray Mountain. Say hello, Zack.
Hello, Zack. No.
Yeah.
Hi. This is actually a momentous occasion because this is the first time I've ever been on Brian's channel.
There you go. Okay, first. Great. We are here to talk my favorite subject today, which is Batman movies. Couple of months ago, me and Zack thought it would be a good idea to do that at some point, and we decided let's do it tonight. Predominantly going to be talking about the four movies starting from 1989's Batman, the two Tim Burton ones, and the two Joel Schumacher films. But we will touch on the others as well, starting with the '66 Batman, which I don't really want to spend that much time on. And also Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy. Again, I don't want to spend too much time on that just because if you know my channel, I've talked those films to death. Plus, there's something I've done with CP about Christopher Nolan, which I've still not released yet, but I do plan on releasing.
Oh my goodness, yes.
So yeah, if you want to hear us talk at length about those films, there will be something coming up. But particularly Zack, when we were talking, when we were chatting about doing this video, we were kind of erring on the side of focusing on like the Burton Schumacher years. So that's predominantly what we'll focus on.
Black outfit Batman.
But
Greek god Batman.
Yeah, just to kick things off, we'll go with the '66 Batman, the Adam West Batman, a movie that was actually supposed to be done before the TV series. It was going to kick off the TV series, but due to certain events, circumstances, whatever you want to call it, it ended up working the other way around. So it came midway between first and second season, which actually worked quite well for it because by that point, the TV series had literally just blasted into the stratosphere with regard to how popular it was. Either one of you two, just briefly, what are your thoughts on the '66 Batman film?
Jack?
I actually have only seen parts of the '66 Batman film, so I can only comment on the shark spray on Batman's belt, which say what you want, but Batman has a gadget for everything, so it does kind of make sense to me. The one thing that I really did want to bring up about '66 Batman in general is the fact that Two-Face never shows up.
Yeah, he was never in the series. They felt he was a villain that they just didn't know how to do him in a silly way, I don't think, because he's a pretty tragic character, and because he's got the close personal link to Bruce Wayne. Yeah, I think there were certain villains that they just thought, you know what, maybe not. There's no real way to do this in a comical light. So yeah, Two-Face is one who they always avoided. So.
But I mean, this is also the same series that took a horror legend with Vincent Price and made him Egghead.
Yeah.
Where he could have been a fantastic Two-Face.
Yeah. I can't think who I would have cast as Two-Face, judging from the acting pool back then. But with regards to the movie, you get Joker, Penguin, Riddler, and Catwoman. And my favorite actress out of the '60s actresses to play Catwoman. So yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've seen the film 3 times, and if I'm being perfectly honest, the first 2 times I watched it, I did actually fall asleep. halfway through. And the third time, I will say I got sleepy, but I didn't quite go under. Yeah, it's good in the sense it's entertaining. It has its moments, but I feel like it's a type of show that works for a half-hour episode. It doesn't really work as a stretched out 2-hour movie for me personally. So, I mean, that's about as deep as I want to go into that film. But CP, you got anything to add on the 66 Batman?
Just to kind of bookend what you're saying, and I'm just as comfortable getting off this. What I'll say about I kind of blur it all together, the show and the movie, because it was such a caricature of, I don't know. I mean, it was trying to be a visual comic for that period. But I do remember in film school, the thing that they showed us was all the Dutch angles, the canted angles that, you know, that I remember they showed us a bunch of old school Batman footage of, you know, for those of you who don't know what a Dutch angle is when the screen is crooked, and they just abused it to death in Batman. And that was kind of one of the first days they told us that, you know, learn from this, don't rely on that. Or Battlefield Earth didn't take that course, evidently. And yeah, for the rest of the year, and you know, whoever I speak to from film school, it's not a Dutch angle, it's the Batman angle. And
yeah,
you know, yeah. Other than that, it all blends together. So I could be getting things wrong, but that's the one thing I do remember from film school. But yeah, please, let's get to Black Suit Batman.
Yeah. I mean, just, yeah, like Dutch angles you're talking about, it came out of like a expressionist cinema, so like German expressionism, that kind of thing. And it really is all about creating mood rather than representing reality.
Unease too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So to put it in a really campy show that is all about fun and whatnot, it's kind of a mismatch of ideas, really, but it did kind of work in a bizarre way. And if nothing else, it is certainly an element of that 60s Batman that will definitely play a part when we get to the Joel Schumacher years, but we'll get to them when we get to them. So yeah, that's 66 Batman out of the way. Just obviously Zack can't give a rating because he's not seen it, but if you had to give a rating out of 5, CP, what would you give to 66 Batman?
All things considered, 3.
Yeah, me too. I'd go with 3. It's a product of its time,
right?
But,
right.
Yeah, it's not a time that I particularly want to go back to. So yeah, I like I say, I do enjoy the series because they're nice little 25-minute, half-hour episodes, and I can cope with that. So yeah. Okay, so moving on, we've got Tim Burton's Batman, and now really just it's not an obvious choice if you go back in time and you know you're planning. Basically, you've only got Superman at this point. The only successful comic book movie is those first 2 Superman films. So let's do the other guy. Let's do Batman. Let's go dark. Let's think Dark Knight Returns, and then we get Tim Burton, and then we get the casting of Michael Keaton, who at this point was probably most famous for Burton's movie Beetlejuice. Although he was a very good character actor even before then. You know, he'd done quite a few pretty distinguished character pieces. But yeah, predominantly Beetlejuice was the role he was known for. His casting actually is such a famous kind of point of contention that so many letters were sent to Warner Brothers. A petition was drawn up to try and get Michael Keaton taken off the project. Like we're talking thousands upon thousands of signatures. Thankfully, it didn't win out, and we got Tim Burton's Batman. Now, before I say any more about my personal opinion on that, let's start with you guys. Let's go with you first, Zach. What are your first memories of that first Tim Burton Batman film, and how has it kind of played into your movie going life as you've grown up, I guess? What kind of impact has it had on you?
Well, I'm the youngest one here. I was born in 1989. And when I was 4, they played Batman Returns a lot on TV, because Batman Returns came out in 1992. So by then, it was being played a lot on television, and they would normally play the first Batman, then the second Batman. The Joker, Jack Nicholson's Joker, was the thing that always drew me to the first Batman film. I think that Jack Nicholson is just fantastic. He's crazy and evil and funny, and like, it's a perfect performance for me. He was my favorite Joker until The Dark Knight. But I also liked Michael Keaton. I thought that he was great. I know about the backlash and the fact that, he's been in all these comedies. Why is he playing Batman? Batman's a very serious character. Why a lot of comedians channel dark memories through humor. So I could see that. And the scene, and I think White Tim brought it up in the chat, you want to get nuts, that get nuts. I love that scene where he takes on the Joker as Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
And seeing those two Batman films really young got me into DC, because the next thing I remember watching was the Batman animated series.
Yeah. Well, before I jump in, CP, let's flip that over to you. What are your first memories of this film, and what impact did it have on you as a youngster, if I can call it that?
Yeah, let me just say that I've just been scolded by Lee for a certain post, so that's already happened. Lee's running a little late today. So I was young enough to remember it being released in the movie theater, and back in my day, back then there were theaters that only had 2, and the super theaters had 4 screens. And I remember it was Batman '89 was the first time that I saw a line around the corner for anything, whether it be, people didn't line up for iPads back then, so it was movies or like sporting events. So I remember it being a big deal and asking my mom, what are all the people at the movies for? She's like, oh, there's some new Batman. And I guess you could say I was reverse sheltered, because I was watching Jason at that point, not comic book stuff. So I was a little backwards. I didn't get to see it. I was just intrigued why so many people were interested in something. Again, it was a fresh experience as far as social buzz. But seeing it, I guess when it was released on, I think somebody got it for me on VHS for Christmas when it came out, whether it be a year later or whatever, and really, really enjoyed it because of the darkness, because of I don't want to call it horror elements, but it very, very gray, very, it has that comic book quality to it. And again, it's like you guys have said, Jack Nicholson's performance just incredible. I was smitten for Kim Basinger back then, I think, and that would kind of drove some of it. I didn't have that much a problem with Michael Keaton. I do remember there being backlash, later on looking into it, but I was too young to recognize any of that at the time. But I liked Mr. Mom as Bruce Wayne, because I felt, if anything, it sold the fact that that guy, he can't be Batman. It's hokey little Bruce Wayne. But yeah, it certainly, for me going in without any sort of interest, the thing that got me into it was the crowd, and after seeing it, I grew attached after seeing that first Tim Burton movie.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key, isn't it? It's like with the passage of time, I think, and obviously Nolan's films, I think it's very easy now for people to kind of turn on Burton's movies and say, "Oh, they're so 20 years ago," or whatever, you know. And it's like, well, actually, for many people, they were the introduction to DC. They were the introduction to comic books. Mm-hmm. I didn't start reading comic books until Batman Returns came out. It was Batman Returns that got me into comic books. So I wouldn't know the character of Batman if it wasn't for Burton's movies. I wouldn't know that actually Burton's movies aren't that faithful to the comic books if it wasn't for the fact that he made them. So, you know, it was my love for those movies that gave me a love for the character. So I think to take a dump over Burton's movies for not being entirely faithful to the comic book source, it's a little unfair. You know, credit where credit's due. And also, you're talking about a character that has so many different interpretations. I mean, we've just come from the campy 66 Batman film, you know? It's like that's an interpretation in itself that people these days want to deny. They want to push it to one side and say, oh yeah, that was, you know, Batman of the childhood. We don't do that these days. So yeah, I think this is just one iteration of the character. And I think to pull out any particular aspect and say, well, that's not Batman. Sorry, Batman wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do it in a particular version. This is Burton's version. I think it's okay to have that. I was just looking in the comments, and based on what people are saying, it reminded me of just how quotable.
Oh yes,
this is. I mean, let me just flip back up on the comments here, because I remember, I mean, in school, like by the time I was 12, Batman Returns came out. That was it. I was fanatical about those two Tim Burton movies, and I literally used to just quote that first Batman film verbatim. I could have acted out the entire film to my class if it weren't for the fact that I hated everyone in there. But so, like, I mean, just some of these lines. Let's have a look. Like, you want to get nuts? Yeah, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. And you know,
you wouldn't have a guy with glasses, would you?
Yeah, you wouldn't have a guy with glasses, huh? Would you? You ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight? It's like it's just literally every line of dialogue that comes out of Jack Nicholson's mouth became something you could quote.
Where did you get those wonderful toys?
Yeah, remember, you are my number one. Hey, guy. It's just like, it just makes me want to watch it now.
Right.
So yeah, that's one thing I absolutely remember about that time when it came out, is just how much I could quote the film, and how in any given situation I could almost pull a quote out from the film to use within the situation. And so some classic moments in the film as well. Well, for me, they're classic. They build up Bob as this sidekick character to the Joker. You know, you're expecting at some point a big showdown between Bob and Batman, you know, and it doesn't happen because Joker just shoots him for the sake of a gag. Things like that, I had, for me personally, I hadn't seen before, you know, given the age that I was. That was like first time I'd seen something like that. And production design as well. Anton Furst, who did the production design of this, he got an Oscar for it.
Oscar.
And you know, unfortunately, he committed suicide not long after the film. But brilliant production design, just stunning. I mean, like, if you turn the sound off on this film and just watch it without the sound, it's beautiful to look at. What do you guys think about some of those aspects of the film, the look of it, the production design, that kind of thing? Zack?
I thought it was strange at first, the first time I saw it, because I know that the movie came out in the late 80s, 1989. But all the cars look like they're from the 40s or 50s. All of the dress, or some of the dress looks like it's from a different era. And I really thought that was unique because they never really say what year they're in, but you could kind of guess what year they're in. Like, Tim Burton wanted to make a Batman movie that was set when Batman was first introduced in 1940. And that was really interesting. Architecture is, I like that kind of stuff. That was a small little thing in Batman that they never talk about. They talk about all the performances, but like you said, they never talk about the production design, which I thought was great.
Well, Oscar winning, yeah,
Oscar winning, 2 Oscars for the Batman franchise. You wouldn't think that, but there is.
Yeah. So, CP, you want to throw anything in on that?
I swear I was just going to say it, then Luke in the chat said Art Deco influence in the production design. Yeah, giant, I mean, Gotham, the city itself, is a giant love letter to Manhattan, New York City. And I think there's parallels to, like you said, Zach, old school, classic, vintage Manhattan. And even at the time when it was being made in the 80s, New York City was not cool. So they even had some of the elements of the trashiness of modern Manhattan in that movie. But yeah, the Art Deco stuff, the like I said before, the way that black and gray were just so dominant, just really impressive. Like if they never made Sin City, I bet we would talk about Batman for being the closest looking thing to a comic book.
They two things that really stand out for it being 80s is Kim Basinger's hair, obviously, and the score done by Prince, which I thought was great.
Danny Elfman.
Yeah. In Prince.
Well, yeah, Prince did songs. Danny Elfman did the score.
Yeah. I meant to say Danny Elfman. I love the soundtrack.
I always get Prince and Danny Elfman.
I love the soundtrack for the first Batman.
Yeah.
I had a point. I was going to say something.
Trust.
But I lost it. I lost it. I'll probably remember when we're in the middle of Batman and Robin or something.
That was my fault. Sorry. No, but I will admit I'm not actually a big fan of Prince. I know some people who are. Like I like his song Purple Rain. I think that's a really great song. But I did like some of his songs from this, and a lot of people do kind of rag on it a bit. But I thought they were perfect for the flavor of the film, for what Burton was trying to go for. But beyond Prince's music, Danny Elfman's score for this was just something else. It was. I specifically remember it being the first score for a film that I actually paid attention to, that I actually zoned in on and thought, I'm actually listening to the music here and noticing it and enjoying it, but noticing how it plays into the themes of the film, how whoever this composer is has built up a theme for each of the characters, and how that theme dips in and out of the score throughout. And that's, so I guess what I'm saying is that's when I became aware of the impact and the influence that a composer has on a movie. And it's also the first time I became aware of the role of a director. Tim Burton was the first director that was my favorite director. I mean, that's not the case anymore. He's been usurped by another Batman director, Christopher Nolan. But you know, even now, if you're looking at a list of 10, 15, he's pretty far down it. But I still really do love the guy. I like his style, but particularly his earlier stuff. Yeah, he made me aware of just what it is a director can do, the stamp that he can put on a film. CP, what were your thoughts on Tim Burton as a director at this point? When you saw this for the first time, What did you think of him? I guess
If we're asking me to go on a time machine and tell you what my thought of the director was at age 10, whatever. I was young. I wasn't paying attention to directors. I was. So it would take a while for me to recognize anything about a certain style. As far as I was concerned, the actors were the people that made the movies, and that was it. The cameras just shot themselves, and it would take a while for me to start recognizing any themes or anything like that. I'll reserve this opinion for when we talk about Batman Returns, because that's where I really can get into just how much I started noticing things.
Yeah.
So there.
What about you, Zach? Do you have anything to say with regards to Tim Burton and you thought about him as a director when you first saw this?
Well, I can give you thoughts now because when I first saw it, it was 6. I want to bring up the noir moments, especially when the actor, which I don't remember his name and don't remember if he ever did anything after, but plays young Jack Nicholson. He's got that shark smile that's frightening. I really enjoyed the noir moments, but considering the landscape of comic book movies back then compared to now, who else would you put in that role other than Tim Burton? Tim Burton was known as the guy that does all these dark movies, so let's have him do the Batman film. Now compared to then, all these directors with big clout are doing Batman films. Back in the late 80s, you're not going to get a director with the caliber of Christopher Nolan doing a superhero film. But now you are, because they're considered, The Dark Knight won an Oscar. So they're considered a little bit more socially acceptable for these big wig directors to direct them.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I had a point there.
No. I see where you're going. I think, what else did we have in the 90s, comic book wise? We had Dick Tracy.
The only I know that he pushed very hard was Sam Raimi wanted to direct a Batman film, and Warner Brothers would not pick him, and he went on to do Dark Command with Liam Neeson. And most people know that Liam Neeson was on the list of actors that played Batman who auditioned in '89 for the role. Alec Baldwin was another one.
Well, Sam Raimi went on to do The Shadow as well. So, and I believe Danny Elfman did the score for that. I think, if I'm not mistaken. Danny Elfman kind of became the go-to guy for
trumpets.
For comic book.
Comic book. I'm sorry, I didn't mean trumpet.
I love reading about the early production of the Batman films and the early production of The Shadow and those, because I'm fascinated by casting. And both of you guys know this. I'm fascinated by casting. Like in an alternate universe, I would have had Alec Baldwin play Batman in '89. Kim Basinger's even in the movie. That would put Bruce Campbell in as the Shadow, because I think that would have worked a lot better for me personally.
I gotta say, I'd stick with Keaton on that one. For the time, it was perfect casting. Obviously, say what you want about it once we get to the Nolan movies, but at the time, given what Tim Burton was trying to do, the direction he's trying to go, I thought, Keaton, excellent. Let's move on to Batman Returns. Before we do, just give our scores for the 1989 Batman. Zach, out of 5, what would you give Batman?
Batman? 5 out of 5.
Okay. CP?
4.5.
Okay. I feel like I have no choice but to go 5 out of 5, simply because the sheer number of times I watched this film as a teenager, and I'm talking literally every day for a whole summer holiday. And when I was in school, I'd get home from school. First thing I did, straight to my room. Batman went on. I saw this easily 100 times during the year of '92 when I had it on video. So yeah, I watched this a lot, and it's obviously going to diminish when you watch a film that many times. The effect of it is going to diminish, but I need to not let that affect my score of it, because given the amount of enjoyment I've had from this over the years, and given how much about it I can still say that I love and it stands up, yeah, for me it's a 5. But yeah, okay. So moving on, Batman Returns. So we get a sequel in which Tim Burton has become such a big name as a director. The studio trusts his vision so much that they say, okay, you make your film, essentially, and just use the Batman characters however you wish. If Batman was a studio film which Burton was allowed to kind of take the helm of, although being reined in at times, this is a studio film in which Burton is let off the leash. He's given free rein, and for some people, that is the film's downside. This is a fairy tale through and through. This is Tim Burton taking Edward Scissorhands mentality and putting it in a Batman film. The question is, does that work for you, or does it not? CP, let's go with you first on this one.
Selena Kyle.
Hell yes.
You're fired.
Selena.
I like obscure quotes. I'm sorry, and I always quoted that for some stupid reason. Yeah, no, I'm in.
Go on, CP.
Sorry, I'm thinking.
It's fine. I'm in the camp that, well, you got to keep in mind that Tim Burton didn't, that gimmick wasn't old yet. You know, that all right, everything's kind of dark and silly. So I actually prefer Batman Returns to Batman. I feel the themes, I think it's more of a movie than Batman. I think there are things about Batman that make it feel better than it is. I feel like you take Jack Nicholson out of Batman and you put somebody else there, it's not quite as strong. Batman Returns, I feel like the film itself, the story, the themes, the score. This is where I started noticing the score. I felt like the score was so perfectly miserable for Penguin. When he comes out and announces, "I'm Oswald Cobblepot," and it's just so dreary. That just everything about the music is, it fits. It carries it so well. And again, more grim looking, black and white. How could I forget? So I liked Kim Basinger in the first one, and wow, leather is quite impressive in Batman Returns, because I didn't recognize Michelle Pfeiffer until this movie. So as a young adolescent teenager, well, I was certainly watching it into my teenage years, so I appreciated a lot of aspects of this movie, and I felt it was a better story. And that's kind of what I would be drawn to, like right now. I think it's a fuller experience.
Yeah, well, before we get to me, Zach, what would you have anything to add to that? What's your perspective?
Like I said, I saw Batman Returns on TV a lot, and even as a kid, I was like, "Wow, this movie is really dark, really dark." But it definitely has that fantastical element that's now prominent in Tim Burton movies. When he's not trying to do something serious like The Guys or something like that, quote unquote serious. But he's one of those directors that can really do that Halloween Christmas vibe really well. The only other director that I've seen is Michael Dougherty, the guy that directed Krampus and Trick or Treat. And I still have that, it's burned in my head of Michael Keaton holding the cat in the snow on the streets of Gotham at the end of Batman Returns.
Yeah.
But I remember watching it as a kid and being really sympathetic towards Danny DeVito's Penguin. I mean, he was just this deformed young boy that was took in by the circus, and he grew up with a plan, and he was going to enact that plan no matter what. He's going to use Christopher Walken's help to get him there. But this is proven that Tim Burton knows nothing about Batman film mythology whatsoever. And this script is being handled by people that have glanced over Batman comics. I enjoy all the performances. I love Christopher Walken and the fact that he's in a superhero film. I'd love to see him return to one. Max Schreck is a character that I don't believe is in the comics, but I don't know that much about early Batman comics. But much darker and way more fantastical.
Yeah, I mean, for the longest time, when I was younger, this was my favorite film. It was actually my number one. It usurped Critters, became my number one film. That's far from being the case now. I hear what you're saying, CP, about this being a better film than the first one. Now I'd have to disagree.
That's fair. You're wrong, but fair.
I think that if you enjoy Burton's aesthetic, if you enjoy fairy tales, then absolutely, I think you can have no qualms saying this is a better film. And I understand anyone who rates this more highly than that first Batman.
That's good to hear, because you were gonna be shocked if you didn't.
Is that I just for me there's a couple of things that let it down, like the scene in which the Red Triangle circus gang somehow get the schematics to the Batmobile, which
it's very over the top. Danny DeVito and that miniature Batmobile.
Yeah,
to get that. That's a little bit over.
Just throw a scene in there, throw a scene in there in which we have an exchange of dialogue as to how Penguin found whoever the mechanic is that works for Batman. It's just something. But they show up with these plans, these whole schematics, and you're kind of like, what? Something like that. And then some of the stuff towards the end in the action is a little bit wooden, a little bit model worky, shall we say. And we never truly get a satisfying final showdown, fight scene wise, with any of the main villains. Like we get some pretty decent fights between Batman and Catwoman halfway through the film, but then towards the end, it's a bit of Penguin and Batman have a little bit of a scuffle. I wouldn't really call it a fight. And that's pretty much it. So for a Batman film, I'd liked just one decent fight towards the end, whether it was with Catwoman or with Penguin.
Well, I was going to say, Catwoman is a character from the comics where you never know if she's truly good or bad. She's always walking that line. And in this movie, they don't really give you that option. She's, out for revenge in this film. And
she is, but if you look at the comic book story which tells of her origin, that's her down the line.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no Max Schreck in that. You're dealing with a pimp. She's a prostitute on the streets, and that's a revenge story. So I don't mind, and I do think they they go a long way in the film to make you sympathize with her and be on her side. You know, Max Schreck is a piece of work. You've got no problem with her wanting to take it out on him. But yeah, I just think that the ending, the climax, it was a little. It could have been a bit more satisfying.
I just think I think that the story is a little bit too convoluted because the ending doesn't really have that impact that I thought it would for Batman. Since this is a Batman movie, the revenge aspect takes over. Yeah. Like, this isn't a Catwoman movie, this is a Batman movie. And she's having the big moment at the end of Batman's film. And you can say that Batman demasking, if no one's seen Batman Returns, sorry, Batman demasking is a huge moment. But Batman taking out the villain should be the huge moment, not Catwoman taking out the villain.
That's why I disagree. I feel like as far as storytelling is concerned, he's risking quite a bit to show her that he is in fact Batman. And I mean,
well, that's what I'm saying. Where they have no interest of the comic book characters at heart here. Batman would never let
You're not reading a comic
kill
book,
someone.
You're not reading a comic.
It goes against Batman's morals. You got to understand Batman as a character.
This is a problem I have with a lot of criticism about movies, comic book movies, and I understand it because if you're a fan of that source material, yeah, it's very precious to you. But for me, and the same goes with adaptations of books. You know, you think of the likes of Harry Potter, this, that, and the other. For me, the best Harry Potter film is Order of the Phoenix. Now, they jettisoned a lot out of the book to slim it down, to really get the pacing on that film. But a lot of fans of the books didn't like that film for that very reason. So what I'm saying is, a film is a film. Book is a book. Comic book is a comic book. I care, first and foremost, is this director giving me a good film? You want to say something, CP?
I said The Shining. I was trying to be really creepy and weird, but yeah, The Shining. Stephen King didn't like that, and I would say whoever liked the novel better.
Well, yeah.
Well, well, now that you said that, I can forgive it because it's not really.
Oh, don't leave me.
They're not. No, I'm going back to the original Batman film. They don't really, explain you Batman's morals and all that stuff, and they do that fantastically in the Nolan movies, which I'm satisfied with.
All I'll say is, when I came to the Tim Burton Batman films, I'd never read a comic book in my life. I was coming to them purely in terms, their own terms, which is that they were movies. As movies, I loved them. As a direct result of that, I went and I sought out comic books. And I feel like it would be a betrayal for me to look at from that point, to look at the characters in the comic books and then suddenly turn around and disown those movies, right, because they don't fit in line with the comic books I am now reading. Well, I wouldn't be reading those comic books if it weren't for those movies. So, so all I'm saying is, movie's a movie, comic book's a comic book. As a movie, does this work as a film? And for me, narratively speaking, I think the first film works a little bit better than this. However, I think the visuals on this film are much more beautiful.
Definitely.
Just really like a fairy tale. Whenever you add snow into something, it's always going to...
It goes back to that Tim Burton atmosphere.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I would say, I agree with CP, what he said before, which is that I think Danny Elfman's score on this improves as well. And that's coming from someone who loved the score he did for the first film. But I just think there's just so many more beautiful moments in it. Like it's got a bit more soul, I think. There's just some themes that run throughout it. And also the song that he did with Susie and the Banshees at the end of this film made me a Susie and the Banshees fan. I was like, I bought every Susie and the Banshees album because of that song. But yeah, so I still love this film, but I over the years I have had to acknowledge some of the flaws I feel are there in the narrative. But yeah, like I say, I still love it. Do either of you have anything else you'd like to add to it before we get on to our grades?
To piggyback your statement about the score, I think if you take the music when the penguins are walking that corpse down into the water, and you put anything else
so
to
sad.
that, the music totally assists that portion. And if you have any other music, you're like, wait, why are the penguins walking? It would just be silly, but the music totally helps. That's it. I don't know. I was waiting like 10 minutes to say that, and I was trying, awfully more respectful here than anywhere else, Brian. Just want you to know that.
Much appreciated, mate. Zach, you any final thoughts to add before we do the grades?
Just that Batman Returns is a bigger sequel with more. It's just more. It's Tim Burton unleashed. It's, Batman at his best. It's got a fantastic villain in Danny DeVito, which I would have never cast anyone other than him, because he's an awesome Penguin. He's the only live-action Penguin other than the one from the Gotham television series, which I don't mind.
Just to interject there, sorry, if I don't put it now, I'll probably forget, but I don't know if any of you realise, but he actually was nominated for a Golden Raspberry for his performance in this film.
I think he's great.
I think that's a travesty.
No, I'm wrong. He's the second. He's the third. Well, no, he's not the third. He's technically the second because Penguin was on the Batman 66.
Burgess Meredith.
Yeah, who is fantastic. But casting is just key in this, and it's great. Michelle Pfeiffer, great. The atmosphere is what gets me in the second one. I love the atmosphere of Batman Returns.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And just to piggyback something you said before, Zach, about the villains, I do think there was a definite move with this film. Not that it wasn't there in the first film. There's a definite move here in this film to put all the focus on the villains, to the point that Batman almost disappears into the background. And I think that's what these movies became. I think it became all about the villains, and they were often talking about who would be the next villains in the film that had come next, even before a film had gone into production. And that kind of became the focus. And I think that really did start here, for better or worse. Here, I think for better, because Catwoman, Michelle Pfeiffer, I'm sorry, but I was insanely drawn to Michelle Pfeiffer for a good many years, thanks to this film. She was my first movie star crush, and she owns it. She just owns the role of Catwoman. As much as I love what Anne Hathaway does later on with Nolan films, for me, Michelle Pfeiffer is still the number one Catwoman. Maybe not the way she's written. I think Anne Hathaway's character has a better script to work from, but just as the way she inhabits the role, for me, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman always will be. Scores then. Who did we do first? Let's go with CP.
All right, 5.
5. Ooh,
period.
I wasn't expecting that, but there you go. Zach.
4.5.
4.5 from me. Yeah. Okay. Right. Next up, and I believe this is that. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is your favourite of the four of the Burton Schumacher years, or is it just that you think it's better than people give it credit for?
It is indeed my favorite of the
Okay.
4 original Batman films.
All right. This is where mine and your scores are going to start to differ from each other, I think.
Right.
But yeah, so we have a film in which pantomime reigns supreme, and the Dutch angles we spoke about earlier from the '66 Batman film rear their ugly head once more here. We've got Jim Carrey on full-on Jim Carrey mode as the Riddler. We've got Tommy Lee Jones, kind of, Oscar winner Tommy Lee Jones disappearing into the scenery, kind of going unnoticed as Two-Face, just showing up every once in a while for the sake of an action sequence. And yeah, we get Robin. All right. Batman Forever, 1995, the highest grossing film at the box office in 1995, I might add, after what was considered by many to be a disappointing box office return for Batman Returns, which is not surprising given how dark the film was. Not a film they could sell Happy Meal toys with. So yeah, we got something a lot lighter, a lot brighter, a lot more, as Joel Schumacher puts it, toyetic. Nowhere near as toyetic as what is going to come after this. But yeah, Batman Forever. While you love this film so much, Zack, tell us your thoughts and feelings on this film.
Again, Batman as a kid, the '90s in Batman for me, like, ruled. Batman ruled the '90s when I was a kid. Because I was growing up in that heyday when all these Batman movies were coming out. And I was caught up in it because that's what these later 2 films were designed to try to pull in. Let's pull in the kids. We're done with the dark aspect of the first 2. We're going to go with a more vibrant, colorful, boisterous action franchise. I still have the McDonald's cup, the glass Batman with Val Kilmer. My buddy had the Riddler one, and I always wanted it. I never got a hold of the Riddler one. I know they released.
I'd love to have that. Do you ever want to send me a present, mate?
Don't do it. He just takes things.
Funny story. My parents know how much I love this cup. They will never let me take it out of this house. Like, I've moved twice, and I have not been allowed to take this cup with me because they're afraid I'm just going to lose it or break it or something. But I had the toys. I had the Batman, the Batmobile toy that came out. I had all the memorabilia. I actually just ordered a Batman Forever poster. So I thought it was a great film when I was a kid. I know it has a lot of problems, and I'm going to get into that. I feel like this film here is the Alien 3 of the Batman franchise.
No. Wait. The thing is, we need to clarify there, don't we? Because when you say the Alien 3 of the Batman franchise, most people would say in their heads, oh, the one that was a bit of a turd. But that's not what you mean, is it?
Well, I mean it as a love and hate statement.
Right.
I can agree that it's not a great film. It's really not. But it has a lot of nostalgia for me. Because, like, I grew up loving this movie, and I'm not going to change my opinion on it. I realize that it does have flaws. But going in the Alien 3 aspect, going into the production of this film and everything that went into it is fascinating. Going down to Tim Burton leaving the franchise, going to Michael Keaton leaving the franchise and bringing in Val Kilmer, who did not get along with Tommy Lee Jones whatsoever. the misinterpretation of Jim Carrey's Riddler being the main villain when it was really Tommy Lee Jones. The fact that the Red Book storyline is never completed in the actual theatrical film. Take it out completely if you're not going to complete it. I have a lot more to say, so let's just move on to CP.
Just before we do, I just noticed Jason Hamilton in the chat. I see those glasses sometimes in yard sales here in the States, Brian. If I come across them again, I'll get it and send it your way, mate. You want any of them or just the Batman ones? Dude, I will have any and all of them. If you send me any of those, spot on.
Send me a Riddler one my way, please.
Yeah,
please send me a Riddler one.
Don't send any to Zack. Send them my way first. Boom. Friend for life. Yeah, sorry. CP, your thoughts, initial thoughts on Batman Forever.
I'm sorry, I'm just writing a novel. I really like the U2 song. What else to say about Batman Forever?
Sorry. White Tim. Val Kilmer doesn't get along with Val Kilmer. That is so. Yeah, sorry, go on.
No, it's fine. Trust me. So, yeah, I appreciated it a bit more. I mean, even younger, I still preferred Batman Returns over Batman Forever. Like I said, the U2 song was I remember taping it off the radio. A little colorful. Jim Carrey was too Jim Carrey in this. Val Kilmer, I'd rather watch paint drying on grass growing act than Val Kilmer in anything but Top Gun.
Kiss, bang, bang.
Oh, good call. I stand corrected. But yeah, other than that, rough times. But I guess you know what? It could be worse. So I'll leave that with a big, heavy ellipsis on the end. It could be worse.
Okay. Batman Forever is a funny thing for me because when I get my movie snob hat on,
Dennis,
I would say that it's not a particularly great film, but for nostalgia and just guilty pleasure, I guess, just wanting to sit back and watch an almost family-friendly version of Batman that isn't so family-friendly that it's Batman and Robin, I can enjoy it. You know, I can enjoy Jim Carrey as the Riddler, even though he's clearly trying to do Joker on acid. I can kind of enjoy some of the action sequences with Two-Face, even though he's Joker on dopamine, I guess. But yeah, it's a bit of a little bit of a mess of a film. Now, because I was such a huge Batman fan after those first two Batman films, the Tim Burton ones, a friend of mine at school, I would have been 15 at the time, or just coming up to 15. He brought a tape cassette into school before the film came out with a pirated copy and gave it to me, which was like a red rag to a bull. I was just like, it was like the Holy Grail. You know, this was before the film came out, and I had a copy of Batman Forever on video, and I went home and I watched it, and it was like your old school pirate copy, you know, the one that's been filmed on a video camera at the back of the screen with people walking across. And
somehow I feel that there were trench coats involved. This was a black market deal behind the school.
it was not a good copy, but because
wait, was it not out in the UK? Was it out in America already?
I I don't think it was quite out in the US either.
I'm intrigued how that happened in that day and age.
Well, it would have been a screening, wouldn't it? Somewhere there'd have been a screening, either for critics or something. I don't know, but I got to see it. The thing is, it was the American cut of the film. So when it eventually came out a couple of months later in the UK, I went. I paid my money. I went to see it at the cinema because I was fanatical about Batman, regardless of having seen it already on pirate. There was no way I was not going to go and see it in the cinema. And there were scenes missing. Ew. There were a lot of scenes missing, which had been on that pirate copy, which really annoyed me. So I felt like the film was incomplete. And even to this day, I still feel like it is a bit incomplete. Although I think with the special editions they brought out, the 2-disc versions, those scenes were actually inserted back in. But the initial run, when it came out on DVD, not there. So we had a headbutt at the end of the film that was cut out. We had the bit where Riddler tears off the hat off that dude so he can fall to his death, taken out. Some other little bits, like loads of stuff with the red book that Zack was talking about before, taken out. So yeah, but for me, all that stuff is memories. It's my childhood memories of how my kind of love affair with cinema was really starting to take off then. How my love for the character of Batman was taking off then, to the point that a film like Batman Forever would actually...
Oh, he's not having that, mate.
Who's that?
My bad. That was my keys. There's something I'm going to show you. Something I'm going to show you.
Right, but yeah, so it ties into all that. It's those kind of memories, and I don't know if you guys have a film like that where even though it's not quite great, just watching it, just sticking it on, takes you back to your 15-year-old self. So and I think this is that film for me. So as a result, it kind of gets a free pass in many ways. Anyway, I've been talking for far too long without you guys being able to chip in. So we talked a lot about the score with the previous two films. What do you guys think of the music here, the song choices? I mean, CP, you've already touched on U2, but care to dig a little deeper, either of you, on that?
I remember being baffled by Kiss from a Rose being the credits song. Like, why is this the credit song? It has nothing to do with this movie whatsoever. It definitely has a different score. This is a very action score. This isn't a drama type score. The first two scores were very subdued and drama scores. This one is a boisterous action score because they're setting it, like I said in the beginning, they're setting up a completely different Batman universe. I mean, it's the same universe, but it's not the same universe, because going back to production design, Gotham City is epic with the big Greek Adonis type architecture with the huge men like holding buildings in the sky. And like, is this a sci-fi movie or a Batman film?
Wasn't it an homage to Metropolis?
Yeah.
Or an attempt?
Yeah. And like, I understand because I read the DC comics and I know they're larger than life, and I kind of feel like that's what they were going for. But definitely going for larger than life in Batman Forever. But I was reading the trivia. One of the funny things was Schumacher is actually a huge fan of Batman comics. That I guess if you watched the two Schumacher films, you wouldn't even guess that he's a Batman fan. He actually wanted to do Batman Year One.
Yeah.
And I would wanted to see that because I love the Lost Boys, and Schumacher's capable of doing much darker stuff than what we got with the 2 Batman films that he directed.
Don't you dare use this as a segue to talk about a Nicolas Cage film.
No, I'm not going to talk about Nicolas Cage.
Okay. Don't want to hear anything about 8mm, so let's move on.
I actually don't have that movie, by the way.
Okay, but that to me felt like a backlash from Joel Schumacher, who was by that point being derided for his neon lighting, so decided to go as dark as possible. But yeah, anyway.
Well, this movie, like I said, studio influence was a lot darker. It had an opening that was cut from the film that's on the Blu-ray of Tommy Lee Jones escaping from Arkham, and it's dark. It's pretty horrific, actually. The whole Man-Bat sequence, which is like a homage to the Man-Bat character from the comics, but it also serves as symbolism for Batman becoming Batman again. I actually want a true director's cut. I want to see all those scenes put back into the film because it also brings back, it makes you care about the relationship between Batman and Robin. You actually get that. You have conversations with them. You understand why Chris O'Donnell's character wants to kill Two-Face. It also makes Two-Face the villain, which he actually is supposed to be.
Yeah.
I'm losing my train of thought here, but
I covered a lot. So.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. This movie was supposed to be damn near 3 hours long.
I'm not sure I could sit through. Well, actually, I'd be intrigued to see that. Actually, yeah. You know,
much darker. It actually went into, Jim Carrey, how he amassed Ningbatek. It was actually a 20-minute sequence that was completely cut. It was storyboarded, but completely cut. I'm fascinated with the cut that was to be that never happened.
Jason, that's Man-Bat. The character is called Man-Bat. Kirk Langstrom. Yeah. It was the first ever episode of Batman the Animated Series. Really good episode.
And if you read if you watch the behind the scenes, they actually talk about all the work that they put into that animatronic. That's animatronics and puppetry for that giant Man-Bat.
Yeah.
I'd love to see those scenes restored.
So, CP, any final thoughts about Batman Forever?
Derp? In a word, derp? Look at their faces.
Well, I'm not saying
derp?
that I agree with Nicole Kidman. You could Phantom edit Nicole Kidman out of this film, and it would not make any difference.
I do have to say, Nicole Kidman, she's a very attractive woman, but I don't think she's ever been more attractive than what she was in this film.
Mm-hmm.
Eyes wide shut. Twice in 24 hours, sir. Eyes wide shut.
Yeah, I'm getting there, mate. I'll get there, but I'm still not holding out any high hopes. But yeah, like Nicole Kidman, she's there for eye candy, really, isn't she?
Yes.
And I think if you took her out of this film, it would kind of make a difference, because she is the catalyst that kind of deals with Bruce Wayne's psyche, because they do go some way in this film to try and deal with some of the psychological issues that are kind of fueling Bruce and his mission as Batman. Obviously not anywhere near the level that Nolan would go on to do, but I think Schumacher does have a good crack at it, and I think that if we hadn't got his next film, maybe Batman Forever wouldn't be quite so put upon as it is. That being said, I still don't think it's a classic. For me personally, it's a 3 out of 5. I do like it, but it it's too campy, too cheesy in parts, and it kind of meshes with the more serious element. I think you have one or the other. You know, you do 60s Batman, or you do the darker Batman. And I think in this one, Schumacher's or the studio at least, wants to have the cake and eat it. They want a product that they can sell to kids, but they also want to keep the adults engaged. And I just don't think they quite get that balance of tone right. But still, very enjoyable film, guilty pleasure, kills 2 hours, no trouble. And I'll give it a 3 out of 5. Zack, I can only assume you're going to give this a 5, given that you gave Batman Returns a 4.5. Is that right?
It is not.
It's not. Oh, okay.
This film actually only gets a 4 out of 5.
Right.
Like, I understand its flaws. And I know there's flaws with it. I know it's not a great movie. And I'm not going to let my nostalgia of it give it a higher grade than what it's worth. And the one thing I did want to show you is I have 2 things on my keys. I have a ghost face, and I have a Riddler pendant. So my 2 favorite characters are on my keychain. Jim Carrey's Riddler is one of the reasons why this movie is so highly regarded by me.
I have Batman on my keychain, but just if we're whipping them out and comparing them, So what you're saying is this is your favorite Batman movie, but you recognize it's not the best.
Yes.
Right. Okay. CP.
Huh?
Score. Final thoughts.
2.5.
Okay. Split straight down the middle. Okay. Which brings us on to Batman and Robin. 1997. Obviously, the studio looks at numbers.
Oh.
They don't really care about products. They see numbers. They see that Batman Forever is the highest grossing film of the year. And so they say, Schumacher, go to town. But
sell us some toys.
Sell us some toys. You know, this is when Schumacher invented the word toyetic, which I don't think has quite got into the public lexicon just yet. But yeah, if you know the Batman movies, you surely know that word, and it applies to this film. This film is literally a toy ad. Batman and the supporting characters change their costumes once every 5 minutes so that they've got new figures to sell to kids. There are scenes which are literally just inserted in for 1-2 minute periods in which they whip out some new gizmos or vehicles which they can then sell as toys. And somewhere in between all that, they try ever so slightly to throw some kind of story in there about a dying Alfred that is far too coincidental when it ties in with Victor Freeze's wife. Yeah, this film is a mess. It is an absolute abomination of a film. I think most people would agree. It's certainly one of the top 10 worst comic book movies out there. But I guess my question to the both of you is that even with that, is there any entertainment value to be had from this? And I'll just before I move on, I'll just say to Dave, Dennis from the Blue Corner has already just chipped in and picked me to the post. Yeah, this stream is all about the live action.
It's going down.
Movies. I didn't want to cover all Batman movies. If we threw animated into the mix, we'd have to do Cape Crusaders, which has just been released in cinemas. We'd have to do Killing Joke, which was released in cinemas. Yeah, I just didn't want to go down that road, so we stuck to live action movies. Something is tickling CP up. I'd love to know just exactly what that is. So we're going to hand over to CP first. Go.
I can get Pardon I'm sorry. Yeah. Uma Thurman looks pretty good in this film.
Did she?
And the plants! The plants! Sorry.
As Poison Ivy, when she's all not messy.
See, when you see a still image of Uma Thurman when she's in the full-on Poison Ivy get-up, I can get on board with people saying that she looks quite hot.
She looks quite purty right there.
But when you see her moving and speaking in that role, there is not an ounce of attraction that I have towards her when I'm watching her in that part. It is a terrible, terrible performance. So,
yeah, so I was going to say minus the dialogue. Her
because we're all looking at her dialogue.
Her origin. Her origin after she finds the secret meeting. Like, if you take all the dialogue out of that, that's pretty cool. I mean, how she becomes Poison Ivy.
Oh,
but as soon as she opens her mouth, it's over.
Something this film, man, when they announced that in this film we were going to get Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, and Bane, as a Batman fan who at that point in time, and probably still is, Bane is my favorite villain from the comic books, with the possible exception of the Joker. I flipped out. I was like, we're getting Bane? We're getting Bane? Seriously? Biggest Batman villain of 90s comic books. We're getting Bane. So, yeah, flipped out. And then, yeah, we got this monstrosity, which completely betrays the character from the comics. And I know that I am doing a complete 180 on what I said before, which is at the end of the day, a movie is a movie, a comic book is a comic book. You know, that still has to apply. However, he's not even a good character. You know, it's like they didn't need to call this guy Bane. This could have been anything. They could have created some new character for this film in order for Poison Ivy to have some lackey, which is what he is. To take that character and turn him into this, yeah, they lost me completely. David Gerlach, yes, thank God Nolan gave us Bane.
What was that before what David said?
What was that? Don't forget the bat nipples.
No.
Further up.
Down two. Right above David's comment. Oh, I screeched it. I airbagged. I apologize.
What are you talking about?
You can't read that M. It's from me. Can you not read from me out there?
Oh, from you? I thought.
Move it.
Move it.
Zack. Yeah, I'm sorry. I've been playing phonics with Brian words, and I just noticed that we're on a delay, so I'm typing it, and they're like, "What is he saying?" And it must be really weird. I'm sorry. So I had to somehow announce that you guys are getting my words. You know, listen. I'm trying so hard to walk away from this crash. You're getting the words a little bit ahead of when it actually happens. So that's that. And
basically, CP had to do a stream with 3 Brits last night, so now he's thankful that the majority of the people in the chat are Americans, that he can then. Yeah, so screw UCP. Let's move on.
Because we have the most fun during the 4th Batman film.
Because what is there to talk about, really?
Well, what Brian said in the original opening statement, is there an enjoyment and entertainment to have in Batman and Robin? And I believe there is entertainment to have in Batman and Robin. Get your boys together, get some beers, you're going to have a fun time, do your own riff tracks, because this movie is hysterical.
Yeah. I don't drink, but if I did, I would certainly stick this movie on, have a bunch of friends round, and get absolutely plastered whilst watching this, because it would be the perfect film to do that with. And if you look at our earlier comments about the first Tim Burton film, about how quotable that movie was, for all the right reasons, this movie is equally as quotable for all the wrong reasons.
Oh, the credit card. Ugh. Oh, no.
Never leave home without it.
No.
There is not.
You're not going to talk about George Clooney's never changing his voice ever, even when he is Batman.
And of course, this was during his shaky head phase.
Hi, I'm George Clooney.
Which he would play every part like this. It wasn't until Steven Soderbergh got hold of him that he literally told him, George, stop moving your head. But yeah, so many quotable lines of dialogue. There is not a single line of dialogue that comes out of Mr. Freeze's mouth that isn't a little golden nugget of dialogue. But yeah, so some of your favorite one-liners, guys, from this film, if you can remember them.
That's what we need Durant Cinema in here. Come on, sing around the sing, come on.
You don't do a bad one yourself there, mate, to be honest.
That's right.
Right. George Clooney sucks as Batman, but was awesome in Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Yeah, in one respect, Batman and Robin is the best thing that ever happened to George Clooney, because it gave him such a kick up the ass,
right?
That afterwards he started making good films. He started working with Steven Soderbergh.
Well, as a fan of the comics, like aesthetically, George Clooney had looked the most like Batman, like from the comics up to that point. Because if you go back to Michael Keaton and Val Kilmer, they look nothing like Batman. Val Kilmer looks more like Green Lantern than he does Batman. And George Clooney like fit the profile, but he didn't act like Batman. They tried so pathetically at doing I lived two lives storyline. Yeah. If you want to call that a storyline, because it only lasted 5 minutes of the movie, with a conversation he had with someone whose voice was totally auto-dubbed. They tried to have some kind of resemblance to what Batman deals with when he's not being Batman. Why it's in the movie, I have no idea. But that is really all I have to say about that, because that's really as far as they go.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to talk. I want to talk about Batgirl, but I don't want to talk about Batgirl because that's a travesty.
Nice stems, buds too. Yeah. The compost.
Stay cool.
Compost. Boy. Is that really how America says compost? Compost.
Yes.
Compost.
Your compost.
Yeah.
All right.
We also call it a trunk, a hood, a windshield.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Okay.
A truck.
See, a windshield is false advertising, because it shields more than just wind. It shields
element shield.
To call it a windshield is really just bad labeling, if you ask me.
But a windscreen would imply that something's getting through it.
Why don't we just call it an element shield?
It's a window screen. So
still, you're using that word screen. Sorry.
It screens out any
final word. I win. Final word.
Final word.
Oh, that's one thing that we haven't talked about at all. David said in the chat, Batgirl's related to Alfred. No, Well, that's one thing that we didn't talk about in any of these movies. The usage of James Gordon is almost completely non-existent.
Pat Hingle, I mean, a lot of people, when they talk about these 4 Batman films, a lot of people mention Alfred Gough as Alfred, because he's like the carryover from all those 4 films. He's the one constant. But actually, Pat Hingle as Commissioner Gordon is also
It's in all 4, yeah.
In all 4. However, I will say that Alfred Gough somehow manages to keep some semblance of dignity throughout these 4 films. He somehow seems to remain the same character, even though the films around him are changing quite dramatically. Whereas Pat Hingle's Commissioner Gordon goes from being
somewhat competent.
Yeah, somewhat competent officer in the first film to someone in this who is literally Chief O'Hara from the 66.
He's brain dead.
Mm.
Like, he literally does nothing. He's quickly outwitted by Poison Ivy. I can't even.
Look, did I call Michael Gough Alfred Gough?
Yes, you did twice.
That's what last night's lack of sleep got me. Okay,
it's okay. We forgive you.
Also worth noting, Michael Gough has played Alfred elsewhere as well, not just in these movies, but if you hunt out a few radio plays that were produced by someone called Dirk Maggs, really great radio plays. They did a whole adaptation of the Nightfall storyline, and Michael Gough plays Alfred in that. It's literally better than most movies with regards to how it portrays Batman, because it's ripped right out of the comic books. So if you've not even heard of that, definitely go on Amazon right now or wherever, look up Batman Nightfall, BBC radio play, and just buy the thing because it's fantastic.
That's one thing I've been wanting to get into is the BBC radio stuff. Because I'm a huge fan of Doctor Who, but I've never listened to any of the radio things.
Okay, so anybody got anything else to add? There's a Smashing Pumpkins song in this.
It's a good song. Yeah, I'll give you that.
Yeah, it's a pretty good song. It was also later reused for Watchmen. But on the whole, bit of a turd, I would say, is this film. But like you say, you get a few friends round, maybe get a few drinks down you. A very, very entertaining turd. And when I did my reviews for all these movies way back when, a couple of years ago, I was surprised to find out just how much I enjoyed this film. Again, for all the wrong reasons. Definitely all the wrong reasons.
There's one thing I wanted to say before we move on.
Go on.
There's one line in this movie that makes me sick sometimes. It's when Batman turns to Robin and says, "This is why Superman works alone."
Yeah.
They waited until the 4th movie, where it had been degraded so much they had the balls to say Superman exists in this universe. I can't. Let's get to something good, please.
Which one Pumpkins had 2 songs for the movie?
It was the beginning is the
yeah. They did the beginning is the end of the beginning or something like that, and then they did the end is the beginning of the end. So one was a slow version, so they switched the title around, and one was a faster version, but both versions are pretty good. Although I err more on the side of the slowed down version. I think it's pretty decent. That was the one they used.
That wasn't the one that they used for the credits, though, right? They used the faster one.
No, they used the fast version for the credits on this. But if you bought the single to the film, which I did, it had both versions on it. So, so the slow one was essentially the B-side, and then Snyder took the B-side and used it in Watchmen.
B-side, man.
Yeah, a damn good B-side. But yeah, okay. We'll wrap up on that one then. Zack, what score would you give Batman and Robin?
2.5 out of 5. I mean, it has some merit, I mean, production-wise, but other than that.
Okay, CP?
0.5.
0.5. Yeah, the film critic in me says 1 out of 5. The guy who, for some bizarre reason, every 5 years or so sticks this film on, and is somewhat entertained by it for all the wrong reasons, he's going to give it a 2 out of 5.
You guys are drunk, like literally drunk, literally. This tastes delicious, by the way.
I saw this film 3 times at the cinema. 3 times.
I actually own it.
We all own it, but
yeah.
No, I own 2 versions of it.
Let's not get crazy.
I own the 4-pack that Walmart put out, and then I own the 4.
This isn't a film you're not bragging rights over. Serious.
Well, I own the 4 individual copies on Blu-ray too.
Yeah. White Tim, I know the 2 out of 5 is seriously overrating it, but my honest mark for it is a 1 out of 5. The 2 that I give it is literally for the entertainment value of watching a really crap film.
I give it for the production design because the sets are great.
Yeah.
The Batcave still looks good.
Oh man, there's so much neon on that thing. It's just like it burns the retinas out from my eyes every time I watch it on Blu-ray on a high definition TV.
I have.
Good grief. Okay. It's not surprising the guy who owns more Cage movies than Cage himself does rate it high.
That does not mean that I like bad movies, sir. Just talking about this before the stream.
It's pretty condemning evidence, though, mate. You got to admit.
I do own more than Cage films, just to let you guys know.
Okay, so that is the 4 main films that I really wanted to delve into for this show. But I do want to touch on what Nolan did with the franchise. I don't want to talk about each one of his films. I will say they're my favorite movies of all time. I find it hard to put them in an order. If I had to, I'd go Dark Knight, Batman Begins, and Dark Knight Rises. But yeah, Batman Begins and Dark Knight Rises I flip-flop with. But either way, they're my favorite movies. I love what Nolan did with them. Made the Batman movies that I wanted once I realized I was a Batman fan after the Burton years and whatnot, and went into the comic books. Absolutely love it. I love the themes that Nolan deals with, that he touches in. You know, this is a filmmaker making first and foremost great movies rather than comic book movies. Dude, do you know how freaking distracting it is when you try to talk and you're sat there sounding like Muppet?
Welcome to Stream, Brian. This is what I deal with all the time.
If you watch this in the future, it'll seem like I'm just a happy idiot. But in the chat, I'm just wreaking havoc on this.
It's like, just grow up.
I have ADHD. I can't focus.
Grow up. You're a man in your late 30s. Grow up. It's like literally Muttley sat there. I'm trying to talk about something. It's the most distracting thing imaginable. Plus, I've got 2 screens up on my monitor so I can see what's going on in the chat and see our screen. So you're this little tiny person down at the bottom, constantly going. It's flipping distracting. Pull yourself together.
Not the dead body arena.
Oh God!
Wow, you said
okay.
Just like it.
Anyway.
Okay, I'm done.
No more fun. Very serious Dark Knight talking here.
So yeah, safe to say, I give all 3 films a 5 out of 5. I think they're not just comic book movies. They are, you know, they're not just great comic book movies. They're great movies. Period. each of them has their own themes that all come together. There's a through line through all three films, so they feel really connected. Just great storytelling. And Nolan ends it. You know, he had a story in mind. He did that story, and he ended it, which I really respect. You know, as someone who knows that it's not about the money, it's not about the sequels. Yeah, just love what he did. Zack, what are your thoughts on Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy?
I love them. I love all the movies. Seen them all in theaters. Actually dressed up as the Joker when I went and saw The Dark Knight in 2008.
You were that one?
Yep.
I heard about you.
Yeah. I like The Dark Knight Rises. I would give it a 4. I would definitely give the Batman Begins and The Dark Knight 5 out of 5. They're great films. You can't do much better than those. I don't think there has been a superhero movie that is better than them. Some say that there's a lot that are more fun, but these are definitely well-directed, amazing pieces of film.
There has been this mentality, hasn't there, that's crept into comic book movies over basically since Marvel started making their movies, which is that if a comic book movie isn't fun, then that somehow equates to a bad movie. Like, it's like somehow this law has come into play where if you're going to make a comic book movie, it has to be fun. And I personally don't get that. I just want a good movie. And if it's more if it's more the kind of film that deals with ideas, themes, that kind of thing, why is that any less better than a film that is all about jokes and?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of everything DC's put out recently. Like I loved Man of Steel, I loved BVS, I loved Suicide Squad. I've actually liked all three. I can't wait to see Justice League and Wonder Woman and all those films. But I equally love Marvel movies too. I'm getting a little bit tired of the same movie over and over again, though. I'm really looking for something interesting. I was very sad when Edgar Wright was not going to direct Ant-Man anymore. But the thing I was going to say about the Batman trilogy is I'm interested in seeing what Christopher Nolan was originally going to do with the third Batman film. Because his original idea was to bring to bring, sorry, I was just thinking about Suicide Squad, to bring Heath Ledger and Aaron Eckhart back for a third movie and adapt The Long Halloween. Which, like, I'm very interested. I like looking up films that have never been or almost were. I like that kind of thing. Like Batman Triumphant, which we did not talk about because it is not a film.
Oh, this isn't the movies that don't exist, chat?
Yeah.
That's so weird. I would have prepared myself better.
The failed Schumacher third installment.
Sorry, I was distracted by the nonsense going on in the chat. Yes, Tim. It's I'm one of those people who takes a long time to see people's really annoying traits because I like to see the best in people. But something David Gerlach said that chuckled me was he said he's going to when he dies he's going to be buried with his Batman his Dark Knight trilogy Blu-rays. I think I'm on that same boat, mate. Dennis saying, "Give him the face, Brian." Oh, I'll give him the face, mate. Yeah. So, any final thoughts on that? Like I said, I didn't really want to go into these films a great deal, just because. I've talked about them so much on my channel, and plus I've done something with CP recently that will be eventually going live. So yeah, unless you've got anything else to say. Oh, Hans Zimmer's score, I will say, throughout the three, fantastic, especially from The Dark Knight. Wally Pfister's cinematography throughout, brilliant. It's just, you can just gush, can't you? Basically, they get everything right, all the characters right. But
Not me.
yeah, unless you guys have anything.
I was being a happy idiot because I didn't want to talk about Batman Forever or Batman and Robin, and I've been waiting to talk about Nolan. And see, had I been occupied, I would have been just fine. But
listen, if you want to talk about Nolan, go for
control
it.
of your
about Nolan.
4.5, 5, 4.5. That's my 4.5 sandwich.
4.5 for Batman Begins.
4.5, 5, 4.5.
Okay.
5 from me.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, so I'm wrong. Okay.
5.4. 5.4.
You're both wrong. 5.55. Okay. But yeah, there you go. Now I don't really want to talk about BVS. We didn't put that into the schedule just because that is an ongoing thing at the moment. Obviously, Dark Knight trilogy. That closes a chapter on the cinematic world of Batman. BVS starts another. So yeah, we don't really want to touch on that just at the moment. So
maybe when the Batman comes out in 2018, we'll talk about that.
Maybe. But beyond that, I'll just give these guys a chance to let you know what it is they've been doing on their channels recently, what they've got coming up before we sign off. Zach, what have you been doing recently? What have you got coming up?
I just recently put up a 300 subscriber thank you video as my complete Nicolas Cage collection. I'm going to be doing another collection video just to prove that I have more than just Nicolas Cage films. I'm going to be doing my complete superhero film collection.
Okay.
And I'm going to be doing a series. I'm going to break it up instead of doing one episode because it takes a lot of time, and I really don't have the time for all that time.
Okay. All right, CP, what have you been doing? What do you got coming up?
Episode 2 of Horror Needs a Hero Mateys has quite a familiar face in it, if I do say so. That was recently pumped out on my channel. Go watch it there now before June starts.
Kind of looks like Brian Lomax.
Yeah. You're going to want to watch it in May though on my channel. I did a quick little thing on Psycho. I wanted to make it longer, but it's nice and tight, 4 minutes or less. Dennis and I went to see Alien Covenant. I kind of vlogged it. That came out on Sunday. We did a very European version of the Embalming Hour yesterday. Episode 3 of Horror Needs a Hero should be out tomorrow, which is about girls. Yay! Who doesn't love
girls?
Okay.
Oh wait, that'll be on Lee's channel. That'll be on Drum Dums. So go there.
Okay.
Brought to you
by Shutter.
Right. All right. Other than that, thank you to everyone who's joined us in the chat tonight. Really good to see your comments in the sidebar. Do join us again and check out some of the videos on my channel. Go and subscribe to these guys if you haven't already. I can't imagine that you haven't. We all were in the same circles, but yeah, there you go. Thank you for watching, and until next time, crack in.